We are done with counting shifts. There is only then and now. There is only one way out.
You know, with all the hype going on right now surrounding The Walking Dead's inevitable conclusion in the next week, Black Panther Wakanda Forever finally reaching theatres, and the recent instalment of Tales of the Jedi, it's easy to forget that Andor is actually still going on. And it's still here for another 2 weeks at least, and if you aren't watching anymore, or just yet, I think it's fair to say that you are missing out at this point. I'm glad to say that the momentum feels like it's picking up with Andor. The actions are being raised, the stakes have never been higher at this point, but I do still have some questions regarding aspects to the episodes and the show itself. Like, how is Andor going to get off-world? Does this mean that Kino never gets out? Is Luthen no better than the Empire just because he doesn't go around killing people indiscriminately? And where's Saw Gerrera?
I don't know! I can't keep track of any of it anymore!
Those are just some of my questions, but honestly, this was a worthy addition to the Star Wars lore, as we gained a fascinating insight into where most of the rebellion likely ignited, where oppression is at its heaviest, within the prison system. I've got many aspects to this week's episode that I adored, but I'm going to start off by saying that Andy Serkis killed it as Kino this week. And if this is to be the last time that we'll see the character, I'm going to assume that hopefully he made it out, and possibly joined up with the rebellion later down the line, because with a speech that moving, you cannot keep someone like that down. Not after the motivation he had of losing a friend in such a demeaning and dishonourable way. The issue I take with how they dealt with his character though by the end of this is the idea that he can't swim being the reason that he can't escape, is without a doubt the most underwhelming reason, for me at least, as to why a character like this can't escape. During the speech, he stated that he'd rather die trying than die on his knees, and as someone who struggles with swimming personally, I'd still go fuck it and try it anyway, because it's a downside better than staying in there.
Gentlemen, it's been an honor playing with you tonight.
It's possible that they're leaving him there as maybe they couldn't afford a circus beyond these episodes, given he is a movie star after all, so his price is likely going to be higher. But they could have come up with a better reason, in my opinion, for him not leaving the prison. Maybe he stays in the control room to ensure everybody else gets out, and is maybe sacrificed to the guards in a way that just feels more complete and in keeping with his character, who was this coward to begin with, but became a rebel by the end. It just feels like a complete disservice to the character for me, and really quite an underwhelming way to say goodbye to Kino if this is to be the last time we see him.
You guys, the fuck?
Andor became almost a background character in this one, but the moments that we had him in the forefront were absolutely awesome. In breaking the piping to cause the shutdown, to taking out the guards in the most badass way possible, and then motivating Kino to, well, motivate everybody else to get the fuck out of there. Their chemistry was great, and from what I've watched of Andy Serkis, he seemingly brings out the best in those that he works with. He's a dedicated actor for sure, and really brings an intensity and weight to whatever role he's in. And whether it's in the capture suit or not, you get a firm understanding of what he's capable of. So it was a great inclusion with Andy Serkis in Andor, and I'm hoping that this won't be the last time we see him, but if we do see him again, please let his inevitable end actually be a befitting one for such a character.
You had one job.
Just the one?
The prison break sequence was visually exciting for an environment that's singularly toned as this, and the close-ups with the guards and the prisoners alike made for an interesting insight to their respective characters, as we were witnessing them in fear and in states of panic, and you didn't necessarily need the dialogue to convey those moments or those emotions, which was just excellent writing and directing in general. The cherry on the cake for me by the end of the prison break sequence was watching the prisoners swim away from the Imperial crest-shaped prison, that just made for blatant symbolism but still an awesome visual nonetheless.
You guys all see him too, right?
Thankfully, for me, we didn't get any Cyril this week, which I was grateful of, and the Imperial presence was dampened out on this one, even though it was still there. And I preferred it, if I'm honest. I get their motivations. I don't need any more than we've had. I know that we're going to receive it regardless, but I want to know more about our protagonists and what's going on with them. We received a loose amount of hints regarding Marva's growing condition on Ferrix, as we caught up with Cinta real quick, who's seemingly tracking their every movement right now. and with that in mind at least, positioning Andor possibly to moving towards the rebellion in her honour, should this be the inevitable end for Marva. Mon Mothma is seemingly under great threat this week, and her story certainly brings about the theme of this episode, in which how far are you willing to go for freedom? We see from Andor that he'll go to extreme lengths to have his own way. Luthen is willing to guilt people into performing tasks he deems necessary for the rebellion to succeed, and Marva is seemingly dying for the cause. But running back to my question in recent weeks as to what people see in Mon Mothma, well, I guess we're starting to get something that I can potentially cling on to with regards to the safety of her family. In the meeting with Darvo, who Tay mentioned in previous episodes would be able to facilitate as a potential financial backer for their cause in the rebellion, Darvo ends the conversation by saying he doesn't wish for money, as that's not a concern for him, but he wants to introduce his son to Mon Mothma's daughter, setting them up for a potential marriage, essentially using her as a way to cover his expenses. This draws a lot of questions up, but the primary concern for me is that will Mon Mothma actually go through with it? This guy clearly thrives on getting his way, and when people are at their most desperate, but to want something like this in a tradition that's very dated, even for the idea in Star Wars, is particularly dark, especially as he goes on record to say that his son is 14 and Mon Mothma's daughter is 13.
Seriously, you guys? The fuck?
This definitely adds stakes when it comes to Mon Mothma's involvement in the series, and I can only hope she won't go through with it, but this may just add to the struggle with the rebellion if she does deny it, making their inevitable victories feel that much more earned. The way they're doing this right now is essentially asking for handouts, so I'm hoping that Mon Mothma says no and turns him down, protecting her daughter and establishing the idea that the rebellion will earn everything that they have. The last thing I've mentioned to round off this review is the interactions between Luthen and Lonnie, the officer that works at the side of Miro in the Empire. This was an interesting one, as I actually didn't realise that Lonnie was even a factor in it. Lonnie is concerned for the safety of his family, including his newborn, and he wants out from the life of being a double agent, and when he goes to talk to Luthen, he demands to know what Luthen is sacrificing for this rebellion, as Lonnie is at risk of being killed or imprisoned because of his actions. He then goes on a whole diatribe explaining what he has sacrificed and how he is willing to give up everything for the rebellion. But as the scene played out, I did start to question something. Is Luthen actually oppressing people that he's working with as well? The instruction to Lonnie that he can't leave felt almost threatening in a way, like subtextually the idea of freedom would be lost if Lonnie didn't stick with it, almost keeping him in there as a case of guilt. This might be reaching, obviously, but the way in which the dialogue played out for me felt very much like Lonnie was being manipulated and almost guilt-tripped into continuing, with Luthen using his newborn as a weapon against him, saying that she'll never truly experience freedom or life if they don't do this, which is true, but the way in which Luthen is conveying this is either masterful character directing and just fits within his dynamic, or is trying to imply that Luthen is an extremist alongside Saw Gerrera, which could also make sense. This episode was a little more thought-provoking, for sure, and I loved it. The grim undertones of it in the case of Mothma, the conflicting messages we were receiving about Luthen, and the lengths that Andor will go to are all compelling directions for these characters. And aside from Andor, as we know where that leads, I'm excited to see where this all goes.
Good job. Good job.
I'd seriously suggest that if you've had any inkling in yourself that you want to come back, or you even want to try Andor for the first time, you start now before it gets too late, and before it becomes too much to try and work through. It's a slow burn series, and is certainly ramping up to its third act, as if this were a movie, so it just needs a little time when you're watching it. Other than that though, I've got little left to say about this week's episode, other than it was quite the spectacle, and really advanced the plot in the right ways. The stakes involved for our characters are dramatic enough that it will keep you engaged as we close out the Andor's first season in a little under 2 weeks. That's going to do it for me though. Thanks for stopping by everybody. Leave a like on this video as it helps things out a lot. Drop a comment down below letting me know what you thought of this week's edition of Andor. Subscribe on your way out and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. And until next time, take care and may the Force be with you.